From our studios at the corner of 8th and Walton in Bentonville, Arkansas, welcome to Saturday Morning Meeting, where we cover Walmart, Sam's Club, and the consumer product companies that are represented on their racks and shelves throughout the country and around the world. I'm Derek Ridenauer. Our focus is on the insights, trends, and best practices that will help you as a supplier grow your business with the world's largest retailer. Thank you for joining us. And coming up today, we will continue our conversation with Darren Robbins and Zach Simpson, Senior Merchandising Directors from Walmart. Also, we will discuss social media and why companies need to have it with Bill Sussman and Amy Callahan from Collective Bias. But first, your headlines. Retail analysts say that Walmart has reason to fear a small grocery chain based in Idaho and boasts a business model that allows it to undercut Walmart on prices. Widely respected supermarket retailer and industry expert Bert Flickinger III is quoted by Business and Money as saying Winco arguably may be the best retailer in the western U.S. and is really unstoppable at this point. They are Walmart's worst nightmare. Society appears to be going back to its hunter and gatherer roots, but the bows and stone knives are now blog posts and tweets. A study by the Hartman Group points out that social media is changing the way that we think about, talk about, and experience food. Digital technology is the essential element enabling consumers to break away from the habit of going to supermarkets for all things edible. Walmart is considering making a bid for the Hong Kong supermarket business being sold by a company controlled by Asia's richest man, Li Ka-shing. Li's Hutchinson Whampoa Limited conglomerate has set an August 16th deadline for initial bids for Park & Shop, which is valued at about $4 billion, sparking interest from corporate and private equity buyers. Surging home prices and 401k balances have millions of Americans feeling better about their personal balance sheets and the state of the economy. But Walmart's core shoppers remain under duress, and that could spell trouble for second quarter sales. A still challenging job market and a lack of wage growth and high energy costs means Walmart's core paycheck-to-paycheck shopper is still making hard choices in store aisles between necessities and discretionary items. The company's second quarter same-store sales forecast is relatively modest at a flat to up to 2% against last year's comp increase of 2.2%. Coming up, we will continue our conversation with two senior directors of merchandising from Walmart, and up next, we will sit down with Amy Callahan and Bill Sussman from Collective Bias to discuss the importance of social media on consumer products. Saturday Morning Meeting is brought to you by CSA Recruiters and by 8th and Walton, your premier destination for Walmart supplier education.
Cameron Smith & Associates is Supplier's first choice in recruiting the competitive Walmart supplier job market. We connect qualified candidates to CPG jobs in Northwest Arkansas and across the country. CSA also sources sales and marketing professionals for companies providing advertising, marketing, merchandising, and data management services to suppliers. Contact us today at csarecruiters.com.
And welcome back. We're joined now by Bill Sussman and Amy Callahan from Collective Bias. And thank you both for coming in. Bill, I want to start with you. Many years with Walmart. You went from Walmart to Nickelodeon, where you ran that team, and now you're kind of jumping into a sort of a new area in terms of advertising and marketing, but also a relatively new business. So let's talk about that. What would make you change?
Yeah, well, I've been doing marketing my whole career, and I've always kind of followed the consumer and the decisions I've made about the companies that I go to work for. And joined Walmart because I knew I could drive the business with print and TV and do some great retail advertising. Left Walmart to go to Triad because of digital, and in the mid-2000s it was all about reaching consumers through the web and banner ads. And this decade, it's all about social media. And excited to be at Collective Bias. We have a great team and a great group, and we're doing some really cool things. And I know I must have made the right decision because a couple of weeks ago, I saw Jim Hayworth on the show talk about how he's driving his whole business by social media. So the guy who used to do everything by floor graphics and printed signage is now using social media to drive traffic. So I think we're going to be
Twitter.
good.
His bulls are on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Amy, I want to go to you. Let's talk about what Collective Bias does, because is new and certainly not traditional by any stretch of the imagination. What are some of the projects that you're working on, and What is it you do?
Sure. It's not actually all that new. It's a different way to connect with your consumers. So consumers are changing the way that they're getting information and talking with different brands. So we're helping brands and retailers create content that's allowing a two-way conversation for the consumers to really get involved and have a say. Whereas traditionally, marketing was about what were those floor graphics and printed signs going to say and tell my consumer that I wanted them to do. Now the consumers are a part of the conversation. So Collective Bias is really helping create quality content for those brands to put out there. But the messages are coming from their customers, so they're listening to them and helping create a two-way dialogue.
So Bill, back to you. What impact have you seen in social media? I mean, you're a former print and media, television and graphics guy. What impact have you seen on the CPG companies and those products because of social media?
Yeah, it's changed the whole buying behavior. The whole way consumers consume media now has changed, and so much of the decision used to happen outside of the store. You'd watch advertising that would drive you in. You knew what you were going to buy. Now, so much of the decision happens in the store, and it's less about, as we talked about, it's less about floor graphics and signage, and it's about what's on their iPad or on their iPhone. They're standing in the aisle doing the research right then and there. They don't believe anything the manufacturer says anymore. They're gonna go figure it out for themselves, right? And how are they gonna do that? They're gonna use their network, their social network, because that's where they're spending their time. They're spending it on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, and they're gonna go connect with people and figure out who's used this thing before, what did they do with it, what kind of ideas did they have, and that's how they're making the buying decision. So it really has changed. It's changed the whole model, and that's why we get excited, because that's what we're doing for people. Our media and our content are one and the same. It's our great community of bloggers, and they're pushing the media out there through their blogs and their amazing followings that they have on those blogs. But they're also developing the creative. They're taking their own pictures. They're coming up with their own recipes. They're showing the way they're using products.
Yeah, how-to videos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
but do you find this to be more challenging? And I'll give you a point of reference here. Historically, I'm a radio television guy. That's put myself through school. That's what I've always done. And you always would buy 30-second or 60-second spots. There's really a lot of time, a lot of copy you can get in, a lot of visuals if you're in television, you can get in that. TJ Foltz was here last week, and we talked about some of the things that they did. Jim Hayworth was here a couple weeks ago. An interesting thing that both of them have said, first of all, Jim Hayworth pointed out that a tweet lasts 24 hours. That's the life of a tweet. After that, it's gone. TJ pointed out that in order to get to consumers, you really have to be pithy. And he was told, in some of his advertising, he has 7 seconds to get someone's attention. So has it become more of a challenge to say what you used to have 30 to 60 seconds to say? Now you've got to get it down to 10. Well, and I know you guys are a little bit, when you're blogging, you have obviously a little bit more time, but are you seeing some of those challenges?
And I agree, a tweet can last 24 hours, but with social content, if you create the right content at right quality, that content can be brought back to life. So whether it's a blog post or a pin on Pinterest, it pins one day, you share it on your social networks, but a week later, a year later, 2 years later, it can be brought back to life. So it never really dies. But if you look at your strategy in terms of I'm going to send a tweet and I can check that social box, well then yeah, your content is going to turn off after 24 hours.
Yeah, and I think attention spans are shorter. Consumers are busy. They have lots of things that they're trying to do. So you still only have a few seconds to grab their attention. But if you do grab their attention, then they're very committed to follow through and read or explore the rest of it. So if it's on a topic that they really care about and you've done a good job trying to capture their attention, they will stop what they're doing and they will sit down and they will read the rest of it. So they use that 7 seconds, or I've seen some data that says 3 seconds. It's a filter, right? That's all it is. But if you make it through that filter, they're very engaged. That's the whole point of social media. People want to feel connected to something. They want to voice their opinions. They want to engage on that topic. They just don't want to be bothered with stuff that they don't care about. So they filter that stuff out really quickly. But the stuff they care about, they're there and they're committed to it.
That's the other reason of partnering with the right brand advocates. They each have their own niche. Whether it's, this blogger talks a lot about food or frugality or family or crafts or outdoor activities. their audience is the same way. So they're much more engaged, and they're actually coming there to look for the content. So more likely to be, a lot more relevant than just following a random tweet stream.
Now, we've talked a lot on here before about how suppliers as well as retailers need to really understand their customer. Now, Jim and I talked about that several weeks ago as well. And you guys, I know we've discussed it, but you don't really do consumer research, but oftentimes because of who your bloggers are and the following that they have, you probably have pretty good insight into who those customers are. How many times or how often have you seen it happen where somebody comes in and says, okay, I want you to develop the strategy and here's who we want to target because we know from research this is our customer, and you guys come back and go, not so much?
Yeah, it definitely happens. I don't think I want to tell you the exact percentage, but I think that was part of the power of what Amy and the team built before I ever got there, right? They were smart enough to realize that it's about building a community and nourishing and taking care of that community. So now we have 2,000 plus bloggers who we engage with and we work with. That's an asset for a brand, right? A brand can come in and, yep, we're going to run a program, and yes, they're going to blog about things, and they're going to go to the store and do pursue a shop opportunity and buy your product. But while we're doing that, it also gives them the ability to test things with that group. And when we enter into relationships that last longer than a program, an annual partnership, that community is always available to that brand to be able to test things. So, and when we go out on pitches and we go, we know we're going to go talk to a company, we'll go do some of that research with our community before we ever show up there. So they'll tell us, to your example, oh, well, we're really going after a 30 to 45-year-old mom with a family, and we'll say, oh, well, that's a great target, and you should go after them too. However, we did some research also, and actually, it's really millennial moms. That's your audience, and here's how they're responding to your product. And it's not collective bias saying it; it's our community saying it.
It's your customers.
It's the customer saying it. So
it's not just demographics though either. It's packaging a product. Is a product bad? And they're going to give that kind of private feedback to the brand to help them fix it, because they're passionate about that particular company. But yeah, it's not just sometimes the demographics getting wrong of who their target is. It's placement in the store as well. A lot of great information they can take back to their merchandisers. I mean, these customers are in your stores every day, so it's great to include them in the conversation.
Now, as a company, why would I want to? Am I better off to launch my own marketing plan and have my own tweets and my own Facebook account so that I can push a product, or is it better? What are the advantages either way?
You should do both. So you need your own marketing plan and strategy, just like anything else you did. Social is no different. But getting brand advocates involved in the conversation as well is equally as important. They're helping to create media so that you're having that dialogue we talked about before. But you as a company, collective bias is not going to start and run your social sites for you. That's not our job. Our job is to help create content to put on those social sites
and drive traffic to them. So I think that that's the mistake a lot of marketers make. I know when I was a brand manager, the challenge is you have a limited budget and you want to get your message out there. So you want to create cool assets, and whether it's a website or a Facebook page, you want to get that message out there. But then you realize very quickly, wait a minute, if nobody sees that, if I can't drive traffic to that page and I haven't reserved a good portion of my budget to drive traffic to that page, it's kind of a wasted asset. So I think that's the message that I always tell to people. It's like, look, you should spend a lot of time and be concerned about what your brand image is and your identity, but you shouldn't spend a lot of time spending a lot of money against assets for that. You should know what that is and then use the mediums to drive the traffic. And I think sometimes companies are afraid of social media. Oh, what's going to get said? Or, how do I control that? I always like to just tell them, look, the conversation is happening with or without you. Yeah. You can be a part of it or not. It's up to you. I would always want to be a part of that conversation, good or bad, so I know what's happening and how I can respond to that and adapt to that. But not everyone takes that point of view. So that's what we push people to do: is don't be scared by it. It is controllable, it is manageable, but you got to get engaged and you got to start to do it. Otherwise, you won't realize that.
Right.
So, and besides just the social media aspect, what are some other changes that you've seen? I mean, you've had a long career, both of you have, in different forms of media. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen besides social media? And to take that a step further, where do you see those changes going?
Well, for me, from a media perspective, it's about targeting, right? I mean, when I started my career, you bought broad cable TV and network channels, and you picked shows and all that. Nowadays, the amount that you can do that's specifically targeted, whether it's against a demographic or a geographic or a psychographic, just the way the customer thinks about things, you can find those customers, using things like social and digital, and none of that stuff existed before. So it's become a lot more complicated. If you're a marketer, it used to be, all right, I'm going to film a great 30-second spot, and that's going to work, and then I'm going to run it in all the right places, and business is going to come in. And now, that's not the way consumers consume media anymore. So you got to really figure out, where are they? How does your product fit in? How do you reach them? How do you target to that? And it's just become a lot more complicated. So I think, to Amy's point earlier, it's not do one versus the other. You pretty much have to do everything, but you have to be really smart about the way you prioritize and the way you allocate your budget so you can do everything.
Okay. Changes down the road? What do you see?
I still think we're all going to have to keep our eyes and ears peeled. Social changes so rapidly. I wish I could, say what's going to happen in 6 months or a year. I'd be rich if I knew, predict the future. But it just moves so fast. Within social and digital, the change in print, unfortunately. But I don't know. I'm glad that we have the community that we have. That's gonna, we've got thousands of ears out there that are helping to notify us when things do change. But I wish I could predict the future.
That's the best. I was going to build on that. That's the best part for us is, look, we don't have to be that smart in the building here in Bentonville. We have a community we are pretty smart, but we don't have to be. We have a community out there in the marketplace, who is engaging and trying new things, and they find it a lot of times before we find it, and they bring it to us, and they say, have you seen this? That's the way, we determined pretty recently, pretty quickly that, moms aren't really on Facebook anymore. They're on Pinterest. Why? Because their kids are on Pinterest, and that's what our community started doing. So, I haven't seen a lot of data out there on that yet, from published sources, but boy, we know it because our community tells it to us every day, and so we rely on them. We talked earlier about how brands can use our community for market research. We use our community for market research all the time, and yeah.
Okay, final thing, what keeps you up at night, Bill?
Keeps up at night. I think it's about people, right? As the CEO of a company, you worry about how do you continue to provide, the culture, the environment, the career opportunities, for our great people. And we've had a great 4+ years so far. We're up to 85 people, literally around the world. We have 6 offices. Bentonville's our biggest, but it's about how do we keep that trend going, and how do we do the right thing for them. And if we do that, I know the business is going to come. The external business is going to come, and we're going to always be positioned the right way, and we're going to drive the numbers. So that's what I think about.
Amy?
So people as well, but also our community. Within the social space, and help bringing opportunities to them so our community can grow and have more opportunities to publish great quality content. So people is at the end of the day what we really, what keeps us up.
Yeah. It's not about the device or the website or which social channel or anything like that. It really is. It's about how do we do the right thing for our people, and they'll lead us down the right path.
All right. Well, guys, both of you, thank you very much for coming in today. I appreciate it. And stay tuned. We're going to continue our conversation with Darren Robbins and Zach Simpson, Senior Directors for Merchandise at Walmart. That is up next.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. 8th and Walton offers a variety of services including new supplier onboarding, scorecard optimization, and analysis and reporting. Visit 8thandwalton.com/services to learn more.
So what are your toughest challenges? As a Senior Director of Merchandising, buyers reporting to you, you're meeting with suppliers as well. What are the toughest challenges that you have? And Zach, we'll start with you.
Chasing meaningful incrementality right now. It's, you know, there's a lot of great ideas out there, but you look at them and when I do the math on them at the end of the day, it's just like, golly, it just doesn't move the needle. And you know, I'm in a bit of a tough industry right now in beverages, but
Yeah, it was not a good quarter for Coke and Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, it's a tough industry, and it's one that I tell you, you know, moving the needle right now in finding meaningful incrementality is probably one of the biggest challenges. In my old portfolio, it was managing deflation because we've had so much commodity volatility, and I managed our baking business, so pure commodities, oil, sugar, flour, spices, cake mixes, that stuff. But when you look at how that was impacting our cost of goods. And the other big one I have right now is the expansion of new competitive channels and the the way in which that's our customers are responding to the competitive dynamics in the rest of the market is something that we got to pay a lot of attention to and have a meaningful response for how we address those things.
Darren, your toughest challenge?
The toughest challenge today is the customer. Yeah, they are under so much pressure.
Also, you're in a very different category, automotive. I know that.
Yes, but it's broad. I mean, it's broad scope. I mean, I spent a little over 9 years on food, on the food merchandising side. I've just recently moved over to the hardline side to get different perspective, which has absolutely been a blast. I absolutely have loved it. But the customer today is under so much pressure. We've always felt, I mean, and I say we're customers too. You're a customer, Zach's a customer, I'm a customer. As we go about our business, we've always felt that pressure. It never relents. But if you look back on it over time, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it steadily increased. The customer is so pressed for discretionary dollars, being able to make it from day to day. And the Walmart customer, the customer that we serve is there. They're also served from time pressures. More so than ever before. Sporting events, getting kids from here to there, just the constantly being connected of overall. Being able to get your kids to school in the morning, get to work, get out of work, get back to the kids back from school, getting to piano, dance, tumbling, football, soccer, baseball. Yes, that is my life. But so getting the kids around, you're under the customer today is under so much pressure from a time and a monetary standpoint. That's the toughest thing. How do you break through and make his or her life easier? How do you make it better? That's the nut that we have to crack in order to derive that value. Making that customer's life easier, better, simpler, saving her money so she can live better, that's what we have to deliver on.
What's something that you really wish suppliers knew before they ever step foot in the office across the street or pick the phone up and call a buyer?
It's a very good question. I'll break into two things. First thing is what I talked about earlier. We are just people. I mean, we strive to do the right thing every time. We achieve that almost all the time. There's going to be times where we make the wrong decision, and you know what? I certainly hope that we own up to it and that we recognize it, we address it, and we fix it. That's number one. Recognizing that when you don't be afraid to pick up the phone. If you see a problem, if you've got a problem within your business, make it heard. Especially if it's something that's material. I mean, if you have in-stock problems that are just continually perpetuating and they're not getting fixed, and we've got issues with it, raise your hand, talk about it, bring that up, bubble it up, so that we know about it, so we can fix it. If we don't know about it, we can't fix it. The second thing is know your numbers, and I know that sounds very simplistic and. Obviously knowing sales rates, whatever. When you come in and you sit down with a buyer and you have this grand proposal, maybe it's a new feature. Very commonly, it's a new feature. I'm sitting down, I'm presenting to the buyer. I think this pallet of X is going to do fantastic for the month of November. We're going to get it out there. It's going to grow the sales. It's going to be this amount of dollars. It's going to be, this is the value of this. As the buyer, you have to sit back and you have to say, okay, that's what it means to you. What does it mean to me? and transference through me, what does it mean to the customer? Am I just going to put this feature out there and it's just going to suck the volume from these other suppliers into you, and truly it's indifferent to Walmart and to the customer when it's all said and done?
Because they're things you would have sold anyway.
Things I would have sold anyway. I mean, that space is going to be productive. How do you get more productive in that space than your relative competitors? That's what I want the suppliers to understand when they walk in the door. It's not always about how much can you sell, it's how much more can we sell than what we could have otherwise.
I was going to hit on the incrementality point again.
Sorry.
So no, thanks. You did a good job. The incrementality point again.
You know, one of the things that as I've talked to different suppliers, one of the things that I've told them, especially as it relates to replenishment, and it's funny because they oftentimes seem very surprised, is that as a supplier, we own the product until the end consumer uses it up at home. Because I can go buy a case of soft drinks, use three 6-packs, bring the whole thing back and say it was horrible, and you're going to give me money back.
I wish every
markdown.
supplier had that mindset. Okay, go ahead.
But I'm surprised at how many suppliers don't really understand that. And I think oftentimes it's a disconnect, and I really learned this from your wife, Darren, is that you shouldn't have a replenishment person talk to a buyer because, or better yet, a national account manager talk to a replenishment manager, because oftentimes as an account manager, I'm tasked with how much can I sell? What are my POs? How much volume can I move? Whereas a replenishment manager is realizing I've got inventory in the warehouse. If it's not moving, that's coming back as a markdown for me, or a co-op in some form. And it's surprising how suppliers don't ever connect that they have to be able to move it all the way through to the end consumer.
Yeah.
Not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's something that I've seen a lot.
I would hope that it's not as clear cut as this job function shouldn't talk to this job function. And I don't want to condone that by any means, because I think anybody should be able to talk to anybody.
But
I
the
see your
category
point.
that I have,
Absolutely.
The buyer has 800 or 400 suppliers. So that's 400 account managers. That's probably 400 replenishment managers. To have them cross over, and now that's 800 people that a buyer's got to talk to is really unmanageable. So I'm not going to get a call back.
Time compression, I'm telling you.
Exactly. So be smart about how you communicate. I mean, I do replenishment and sales calls, so I do overlap that, but in many companies it's a little more difficult.
To bump on to, again, what are the things you wish suppliers knew? For me in the food business, I can be quick enough, I can be dynamic enough, I can change fast enough. You don't have to come in and present something that goes to all 3,500 stores. And
To regionality?
Or consumer-centric, on understanding, okay, this is a product that a certain customer, whether it's income-based, whether it's ethnicity-based, whether it's an urbanicity, that my product is going to have an affinity with a certain customer group, and it's going to be a really poor choice in Plano, Texas, but it's a great choice in a different area that may have an income profile which that product line would be more relevant. And so, there's kind of a saying of, in order for us to get bigger, we have to be able to act more locally while still maintaining scale. And so that's the challenge that I really try to instill in a lot of our vendors that come in, even the big guys and the little guys, is 4,000 store features are great and they move the needle for your organization, but I've got to become more relevant and I've got to use more precise tactics in order for us to move the needle going forward. And when I walk into a store and see that we're sending in the wrong features for that store, and I get lit up by a store manager, and I deserve it. It's something that goes, really the root of it is, it's got to start, and the genesis of it has to be in those vendor meetings where we're building a culture of, we're going to have some national features, but then we've also got to understand where the mutually exclusive store groups where I can go hit a dominant SNAP store, I can go hit a dominant Hispanic store, and begin to, on our side, communicate it and execute it effectively, and on the vendor side, be able to effectively monetize and understand the returns that we're getting off of those features relative to how they would have performed in a different store profile.
Okay. What do you want to see from suppliers when they come in for a line review or a joint business planning meeting?
The first thing that we try to cover in those line reviews is get on the same page about what's your strategy, what's our strategy, where do the ovals intersect, and where do we have congruency within those things. So I mean, that's really the first thing, is understanding, like, where do we have where's there mutual benefit between our businesses. And then the other thing in line reviews that, you know, I would again reiterate, it doesn't have to be national distribution. Help me understand where you believe customers will have an affinity for your product, whether that's regional, whether it's customer profiles, those sort of things. And then the last thing is, you know, help me understand where source of volume is going to come from on your item. Because if you're going to do $100 a store a week, that may only be 50% incremental. Well, where am I going to be sourcing volume from? And then I can go do that quick, am I happy or sad, with the profitability in my head. So I think understanding source of volume, understanding where your consumer affinity lies, and then understanding where we've got opportunities to leverage core strategies between our two organizations are things that are important for me.
I think between line reviews and JBPs, I look at them in two different buckets, because I think two different levels of detail. A line review is going to be much more tactical. And in that scenario, you are reviewing the line. I'm looking at what you have available, making those choices of what I think is going to propel the customer to make a decision at that point in time. What's important for you to come into that is as you have new things, help me understand why. As we have changes to the line, why? What made you make those decisions? What are you understanding? What are you seeing in customer insights? Help walk me through the data. Are you talking to customers? Are you conducting those focus groups? Are you asking the customers, is it an unmet need that's not being met today? Are we adding value to it? Or are we just changing to change? And a lot of times I see a lot of that, of just changing to change and cycling through. Well, we have a different model that's coming out. Okay, well, what's different than the model? Well, we added a button over here. Well, what does the button do? Well, it really doesn't do anything. Then why add the button? It leads to trapped inventory, stagnant inventory in the stores, and a whole change out, and it's just spending labor that we don't need to spend. For JBPs, that's much more strategic. Should be much more strategic. Now we're looking out past the horizon of saying, what's coming? What do we have that we need to change within our categories in order to meet the needs of the customers long term? Maybe 2 years out, maybe 3 years out. A joint business plan, JBP, really should be sitting down, and a portion of it should be focused upon the current financials of what's going on. Are we tracking towards what we agreed upon in the last JBP and the JBP before that? Are we on track? But then the bulk of it should be, what does the future hold? What does it look like? I think a non-productive JBP delves down and gets into the granularity of, well, we have 2 features this year versus 1 feature, or versus 3 features last year, so we're going to be down 4%, whatever it is. Those need to be addressed, but that's much more tactical, and that needs to be a separate conversation. What I'm looking for in a JBP and for a strategy plan or a top-to-top plan within that structure is looking for saying, what is fundamentally changing in the marketplace? How are customers changing their spends? How are they changing their behaviors? Is consumption going to be up? Is it going to be down? Are they moving towards new features? Are they moving towards different categories, moving ones from the others? I mean, I can only imagine the conversations that were happening over VHS and DVD suppliers during that transition when it was going on. But making sure that we as the leaders of our business are fully aware of what's coming out in the industry 1 year, 2 years, 3 years out, and knowing that we can move space and we can shift things slowly over time is much less dramatic for our customer than at a line review seeing something that's completely new, something that completely revolutionizes a category and going, well, crap, I love it. Where am I going to put it? Knowing that on the front side, those are the things that need to be coming out on JBPs.
When a supplier comes to you, and this is the final question because I know you've got to get, when a supplier comes to you and they're going to do a brand extension, or they're going to bring out a new item, what are the questions they need to answer? We may have already talked about this a little bit, but what do you really want to see? Because typically you don't have that much time with them. If I'm in a line review, I've got 30 minutes. Buyer's typically late and typically wants to leave early. So when you're looking at a 20-minute deal, what do you really want me to get to if I'm doing a brand extension or a new item? Quickly in that.
You want me to start?
I'll take it. I mean, really for me, it's source of volume. It's understanding, okay, is this just a new flavor or is it really going to drive incremental occasions? I think, on some of these seasonal businesses that exist out there, there's really opportunities to drive sort of off time consumption, off key time consumption. We've looked at that in like frozen desserts in the past, and ice cream, cakes. For me, we had a really robust program with one of our strategic vendors, and sort of the off promotional time period for that category that worked really, really well for us. So I'd say, like, okay, how is this going to build the category? How's it going to raise the waterline for the category? And what kind of a trajectory does it really put us on over the long haul? Source of volume is a big one for us. And then given perspective to like our margins and where this item is coming in, where it's proposed, and where it exists in the context of other margin structures within that segment, within that area. The other one that's an important one, and this is a little technical, but understanding, okay, now that we have a syndicated data, where's our share on this particular product segment relative to what fair share ought to look like? And I'm more apt to lean into some of those areas, especially if they're more profitable. That's easier growth for us. If it's attainable headroom within a given segment, those are things that I would be really apt to chase pretty quickly.
I'm going to throw one thing in here real quick. If I'm launching a new item, it may be tied into my fiscal year, which could be different from your fiscal year. What if I bring that in mid-year for you? Like, we've already done line review, we've already got that set. How likely am I to get that item in?
That's a great question, and the answer is it always depends. If it's really meaningful, at Walmart, like, you gotta launch products on the mod timeline to be successful. Even if you have a stellar DSD or you got a stellar relationship with a third-party merchandiser, it's really hard. The modular is a big deal. The program space is a big deal at stores. And so you come in and you're off that modular timing, it's really hard. So as an organization out there, as soon as you get visibility to when that product has the potential to land in market, you need to let your merchant know. And that merchant is then going to be at that intersection of, okay, I need to schedule something for this particular launch, or we need to move it up and I need special distribution early at Walmart, or we ship it in and it waits until the mod comes down. And that is a scenario does it work? Yeah, I could give you a handful of examples of when it's worked, but they're kind of few and far between. Modular validity is absolutely the way to go. And so the earlier that you can get your merchant visibility to those product launches or the availability of those products, the better.
That's what I would consider an up and down meeting. It give you the insight as to how that would flow if you were coming to me as a supplier in that scenario. I've got a great new item. It's going to revolutionize everything. It's going to be hugely different. We're between modulars. The first thing, the up part, is that I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to say, that's great. I'm going to applaud you for bringing innovation, and we're going to do something different for the customer. That's fantastic. Now for the downside of the meeting. If you were really a strategic partner of mine and you really were working on something that was going to revolutionize the industry, I would not be seeing it for the first time right now, mid-modular.
Okay, so get you involved early.
That's part of being a strategic partner. I mean, that is something that's part of that partnership, and that's part of defines. When we were talking earlier about making a good supplier great, that is an expectation. Is that if you're a partner of ours, and we're partnered to grow the business together, I shouldn't be seeing anything revolutionary in a line review that I didn't know was coming. I mean, I should be, possibly I'm seeing it for the first time in a line review. Or at the worst case, a line review. We're even talking about it not even being in a line review. We're talking about it being off modular. That's even worse. The odds of getting that on shelf, the compelling argument would have to be huge. It would have to be absolutely huge to have a compelling argument for us to put the labor involved in at store. I mean, we got to think of the 4,000 plus stores that we've got. The decisions and choices we make impacts 1 million plus associates at store level. And we've got to be cognizant of that, of how we're handling that labor at store level. We have to be cognizant to the customer of disrupting their shopping flows. I mean, there's real ramifications of modular changes.
There's also, I mean, if you want to be a strategic partner, like if you want to be in that best bucket of suppliers, you got to give, you know, whatever the purchase cycle time is or the buying cycle time is. It, you know, maybe longer in an apparel category. It may be really short in a 6, 8, 10 months. We sign non-disclosures. You know, we'll go through, but the best partners we have and the ones that we align with best are the ones who say, here's what's coming, you know, 2, 3 years from now in the food business, and it's confidential. Yep. There are things that we take very seriously because that's something we earn. We earn that right to be able to see that innovation ahead of time, and it allows us to be buttoned up, be organized, execute it with precision, and we know that when we get meaningful early share of items, it's really sticky. It stays with us for a long time, and you know, again, news the lifeblood of how we want to drive excitement in a lot of our stores.
Okay, final thoughts, Darren?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. I think it's a great opportunity, and any chance that I get, you know, talking earlier of the big faceless corporate entity, it's me and Zach. At the end of the day, it's me and Zach and countless other brothers and sisters that are out there that are doing what they can to make a difference in the world, and it's a bunch of individuals. We're just trying to do the best thing we can.
Zach?
You know, I just say, you know, this is such a wonderful industry. I mean, we get to work with some amazing professionals, and Bentonville is such a great place when you think about, you know, the 30-year associates or even the 25-year associates who've been around since Supercenters started and have seen the world's largest grocer grow from something that was, you know, a really small time food retailer to what it is today. And you've got this unbelievable supplier talent that gets brought in, and then you've got this international community here as well that really, really focuses on the global business, which of course is a very important frontier for us. So appreciate what you guys are doing, and appreciate, you know, a lot of the really hard work with the suppliers that exists out there. You know, to echo something, you know, you mentioned earlier about, you know, we of course hear stories about folks who, you know, aren't having a good experience with Walmart. That's not what we want our brand to be. We don't want, it does happen, it does exist, everybody has off days, but you know, that's to Darren's point, the time to pick up the phone and to really work on forging relationships there. And it's something that I think we all aspire. Our leadership is very focused on having superb, ethical supplier relationships as we go forward. So thanks again, Derek, for the time today, and hope we were able to share a few things that some people might be interested in.
I think you did. Guys, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. If you have questions about anything we've covered today, please email us Saturday at 8thandwalton.com. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next Saturday morning.